Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar, Become a Wildland Firefighting Vendor. We're very excited to have Craig Erickson with the U.S. Forest Service, the Team Lead Contracting Officer, as well as Lucas Titus with CalFire, and he's a Forester 1, the Resource Management Program. My name is James Forrest. I am a procurement specialist with Norcal APEX Accelerator, and I'm going to talk about who we are before we launch into the main presentation. We are one center among a whole network of centers. We've got a map of California here, and these are some of the regions that the different APEX accelerators, and they used to be called PTAC. So if you might be more familiar with the term PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, but we had a name change on the national level from our funder. And so we are known as APEX accelerators. And you can see there's 7 of us just in California alone. There's 96 across the country. And our purpose is to counsel and train businesses in order to sell their goods and services to the government. And when we say the government, we don't just mean the federal government. We mean any local agency, school districts, counties, cities, tribal governments, of course, the state government. There's 50 states and all the different agencies, the federal government and everywhere in between. So, you want to think back when you're thinking about government contracting. There's a lot of different opportunities for different folks there. The key is finding where that opportunity is, but we help with all of it. We don't do general business assistance. We don't do, business startup, that sort of things, loans, financing, all of that. But we are laser focused on procurement, and that's what we're good at. And that's what you want us to be focused on, because you don't have to tear your hair out trying to get through it. We are a free program for you. So I like to say you've already paid for us with your taxes. You don't need to pay again. We get funding from the federal government as well as the state government and some local sources. So this allows us to provide a lot of quality services to our clients. For instance, in fiscal year 21, APEX Accelerators overall served 56,000 clients and helped them win more than $24 billion in government contracts and subcontracts. Our slice of that in FY 21-22, we helped our clients win almost $1 billion, $900 million. And that's just in these 15 counties here. So that's a pretty healthy share here in Northern California. And we do this with 3 main core services. The first is one-on-one counseling. So I'm a procurement specialist. So if you apply for our program, if you have a business that's in our service area, it's established and you're qualified for government contracting, then we can accept you into the program and assign you to a procurement specialist such as myself. We will meet with you one-on-one on Zoom. If you're in the region, we can do in-person meetings on office hour days, and we'll go over together in a sort of collaborative way all the steps that are required in order to do business with the government. And there can be a lot of red tape and a lot of mystery around it. We can help unravel that for you. You can also set up a custom bid matching profile for you. Basically, this is if you enter a series of keywords, qualifications, geographic area, this system will go out on the internet. It'll scrape together whatever bids it can find, open bids from different governments. It'll get everything federal, everything state that's publicly listed, and it'll get a lot of local stuff. Not all of it, but it'll get a lot. The nice thing about this is that it's free, because you can definitely pay thousands of dollars for custom bid matching platforms elsewhere. We pay for it, but we offer it to you for free. And the third one you all know because you are participating in this element today, regardless of if you're a client or not, is we put on resources and trainings. So webinars like this, free and open for everyone to join from everywhere. The client services are free, but you have to apply and go through application process. So the first 2 things, you have to be a client. This third one, you could be joining from Bangladesh. It wouldn't matter to me as long as you're getting something out of it. So again, here's our map. We've got the whole 9 counties of the Bay Area, then up the coast in the rural inland counties here, Siskiyou, Trinity, Shasta. A lot of great folks here. If you want to find something that outside of this service area, you can click on this link down below when you get the slides, aptac-us.org/findaptac, or just Google it. Google Nevada PTAC, Nevada APEX Accelerator. It'll come up with the resource you're looking for. And here's our website where you can sign up to join for us. Just a little sample of some of the services we provide. It's pretty extensive. I think of it as like cradle to grave, assistance with government contracts, prerequisites like SAM.gov, Cal eProcure, all kinds of certifications on every level, capability statements, marketing documents, market research, proposal solicitation review, post-award support, how to connect with primes and subs, multiple award schedules, things like that. So if you're interested in any of those services, you come to the right place. And with this little ritual, let's dig into it. So this slide is basically saying, use your best judgment. We're recording this in January of 2024. Things change. So if you're reading this or watching this in the next few years, things can change. And this is also to the best of our knowledge at this time. And I think this is just a general point. Whenever you hear something from somebody, you do your own critical thinking about it. This is our take on how these programs work and best advice. And so just keep that in mind. Okay, our agenda for today. Number one, I'm going to give an overview of vendor opportunities. So I'm going to kind of start broad and narrow it in. And then the first part of the presentation is going to be focused on the U.S. Forest Service. I'm going to give the first part of this presentation, and then I'm going to hand it over to Craig Erickson, who's going to bring us home. So we're going to talk about the new VIPR solicitation plan details, prerequisites for how to use a VIPR, how to register and use the VIPR portal, what's being solicited this year, how to do VIPR quoting, and what to expect after your quote is selected. We're also going to really briefly talk about the AIMS program, the Incident Management Services program, and then we're going to hand it over to Lucas, who will lend us his expertise for the CalFire program, the Hired Equipment program. So he's going to give an overview. He's going to talk about, I should say, 2024 due dates, required documents for the application, going to go over rates and shifts, and show us some sample forms, and then he's been kind enough to supply contact information. So let's hop right in. If anybody has any questions while we're going through this, please enter it into the Q&A. What's going to happen is that we've got about 70 people in the audience. We're going to get a lot of activity in the chat as things go through, and it's just me today. I'm flying solo running this webinar, so it's hard for me to track through the chat everyone's questions. So if you put them in the Q&A, it's nice and orderly, and we can have a great Q&A session later. So please keep that in mind as you're going through. But if you want to network or say hi, drop in the chat and do so. I just may not respond there. Okay, let's start broad, like I promised. So what wildland firefighting vendors, what are we talking about here? So first of all, our target audience are small forestry and construction businesses. Could also be an individual if you're in certain solicitation categories, like vehicle with driver. If you have a truck and you got some experience driving and being in sort of dangerous situations, but you have to be wanting to put your equipment to work supporting wildfire suppression. And it's not for everybody, but there's certainly a lot of opportunity here if it is in your wheelhouse. We are talking about prime contracting today. And if you've heard these terms before, prime and sub, subcontracting is when you work for another company that has the contract with the government. Prime contracting is when you are that company that has a direct relationship, contract or agreement with the government agency. So almost everything we're going to talk about today is prime contracting, but that's not to say subcontracting doesn't have a role in forestry and fire-related fields. So just keep that in mind. Be as specific as possible. Okay, so the general idea for these programs that we're going to talk about today is that there's more work that needs to be done on the federal and state level in terms of fighting fires, in terms of digging fire lines, supporting fire camps, fire crews, than these states, the government agencies do on their own. So it's helpful to bring in equipment, resources, operators from the private sector, folks who are experienced in this, and have them supplement the fire fighting efforts. And that's kind of where you can come in here. This is not a normal government acquisition process. I mean, essentially, it's kind of like disaster contracting, but you expect it every year because there's typically multiple fires in any given region, wildfires every year that both agencies are involved with. So what they do is they create flexible agreements. These are arrangements that they set up ahead of time. So they have folks apply, submit all their paperwork and requirements. So, and do that typically in winter, sometime around now in the next couple months. And that way, when June, July, August, September, October come around, the times when it's hotter and drier and the fires are breaking out, they have lists of folks that they can go down and call and reach out to, offering calls or offering work, basically. We need you on this fire. Are you able to get out there soon? You can say yes or no. So that's the idea, is to have all these things arranged ahead of time in the off season when things aren't already burning. And so that's what we're going to talk about. First off, we're going to talk about the U.S. Forest Service. This is an agency of the USDA. And the main way they solicit fire support equipment and vendors and operators is through the Virtual Incident Procurement System, otherwise known as VIPR, which is a nice, cool name. There's other ways. There's also the AIMS program, which Craig is going to talk about a little bit later. But the principal one we're going to talk about today is VIPR. When you get an agreement in VIPR, it's called an Incident Blanket Purchase Agreement, an IBPA. And here's kind of how it works. If you get an IBPA, it's not a guarantee you'll get any work. Some other things need to happen first. So of course there needs to be a fire kind of in your region, or a big enough fire that it needs your resource to draw from another region. So that there needs to be a demand for your equipment or your services, and then you'll receive a call against that agreement, and they will request for you to show up at fire and do work for a certain period of time. You arrange that work, and then you get paid afterwards. That's in a nutshell how the system works. And Craig's going to be talking a lot more about VIPR and AIMS program, and we're not done with that. But we're on an overview level right now, so let's talk about CalFire, Hired Equipment Program. CalFire is you've probably heard of it before if you're in our region at all. It is the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. They do a ton of work in our state combating fires, and they have the Hired Equipment Program. It's sort of like their equivalent of VIPR. There are a lot of parallels between these two systems, but there's a lot of things that are different. So I think, a lot of my clients will get things confused between federal and state contracting. And so I don't want to be counterproductive making comparisons, but there are certain things that are similar. But just make sure that you keep in mind that these are two separate agencies. And for all intents and purposes, for you, they are completely separate programs. Doing something for one will not instruct you how to do it for another. And so, mind your P's and Q's here when you're going about doing business with both. One example of what's different is, instead of in VIPR, you submit a quote, you determine your own price, and then the Forest Service decides whether they like it or not, and they'll put you higher, up, or lower on the list of when they start making calls for forest fires. CalFire determines your rate ahead of time. It's in the supplier manual. You can look it up. Do you like that rate or not? Do you want to do that work? So it's a little more like a normal job, where you'll start at the base rate. And so the application for CalFire, you can submit it to them. It's more paperwork heavy than VIPR. There's just some differences there. You got to get all these documents in ahead of time. But once you're selected, you're on an emergency equipment rental agreement, otherwise known as an EERA. And that's a 3-year period there, started last year. So I think I have another slide here. Yeah, so similar to the VIPR IBPAs, CalFire EERAs are applied for in the off season. They don't guarantee any work. You give a good shot at getting work, but they don't guarantee anything. And it'll put you on a list of vendors who can supply certain kinds of equipment in your geographic area for 3 years. You may get a call from work if a need arises, and they may need you to respond pretty quickly within 12 hours. So Lucas is going to talk more about this. Lucas Titus here about the Hired Equipment Program. So before that, let's talk about Forest Service. And this is the first part of the main presentation. We're going to dive into Forest Service contracting. All right. So this is California. This is a map of California. We are a California program, and so I know some folks are joining from out of the state. We are focused on our own state here for this webinar, but you'll get a lot out of it if you're still somewhere else. But this is known as the Pacific Southwest region, otherwise known as Region 5. So you'll see that when you're on sam.gov looking at solicitations and all through the VIPR process. This is Region 5 contracting that we're focusing on. And you'll also see, you can see there's a ton of regions across the country, I think like 6 or 7, but the Pacific Southwest is Region 6, and that's just north of us. So you can see a lot of those solicitations as well. Sometimes they're on the same solicitation. So Northern, Central, and Southern California, you got a map of the Forest Service lands here. And you can see, I mean, especially in Northern California, it's about half of the land is Forest Service, and plenty in Southern California as well. But if you're in this region where a lot of our clients are, there's a lot of opportunity because a lot of these forests will have wildfires. It's a natural part of the environment, and they need help for battling these and preventing them from destroying property and taking lives. So let's go over briefly. Let's kind of zoom out again. The Forest Service is a large federal agency. They buy all kinds of stuff. And I see some folks here that, you've got hotels and different sort of services. We are mostly talking today about fire support services. We're not so much talking about administrative support, lease, rental of equipment, special studies, analyses, housekeeping, maintenance, all of that. Insofar as these can be related to fire support services, it can be included, but primarily we're talking about direct support for fire camps and digging fire lines and things like that. Forest Service has a great website for VIPR. Well, actually, it's their procurement website overall. I've linked it here, so feel free when you get the slides to take a look at that, or you can just Google it. USDA VIPR procurement will come up. It has a lot of helpful resources on there. So you've got contacts. You can look up different dispatch centers. There's compliance checklists, which a lot of clients ask me about. You can find that if you click on VIPR, there's compliance checklists. It'll go through all the equipment and safety requirements you need for your truck or your dozer, excavator, what have you, when you show up on a fire. And it'll also have resource guides and things like that. So please do take a look at this website if you're thinking about getting into this at all. And if you are thinking about doing this, you got to think about it now. So you've done the right thing by joining this webinar. Because now is when VIPR is rolling out their solicitations. And here's how the timing for these solicitations that result in blanket purchase agreements work. There's something called the National Solicitation Plan. Now, it used to be on a 3-year schedule. For many years, if you had a chipper, every 3 years they would solicit chippers. And if you got on an agreement, you had 3 years to get work on that agreement before you had to redo it. They made some changes last year, which are going to impact everyone involved in fire support. You can see here's the 3, for instance, miscellaneous heavy equipment solicited in 2021, soliciting again this year in 2024. What you can't see is after this, it switches to 5. So if you get on an agreement now, from an open solicitation, you are on that agreement for 5 years. And so that's something to keep in mind. Most of them are now on 5. The national ones have been on 5 for a while. I've linked the National Solicitation Plan here. This is really helpful. Pin it up next to your computer, keep it on you so you can be aware of what's coming up. And there's a new process. So it's not always going to be 5 years because they actually do something called onboarding now. So let's go back, for instance, here. Let's see, heavy equipment. Let's say you have a dozer. Last year, they were soliciting dozers. You go over, you'll find the X 2023. Okay, so the 5-year solicitation for dozers came out last year. Oh no, you missed it. You're only finding this year. Well, you can actually get your dozer on an IBPA. You have a shot of doing that this year through something called the onboarding process. Basically, what that means is that even though every 5 years they have the main solicitation categories that are going to open up, they're going to open them up in the in-between years as needed, and they can bring on new vendors. So if you get on this year, you have a 4-year solicitation. So something to keep in mind, you don't have to wait until 2028, which means there's a lot more opportunities for my clients and the folks that I work with in between years. And it's ultimately also the switch to 5 years is going to save the Forest Service time. But then the onboarding process will be allow a lot more flexibility getting folks on. It also means that if you're on an existing VIPR agreement, you can add resources on in the in-between years as well. So it's not just for brand new vendors. You can also change your dispatch center and change your rates and things like that. So overall, this is great news because you have more opportunities for getting involved with this sort of wildfire support effort. All right, this is a juicy slide. Thanks, Craig, for providing this. This is what's going on this year for VIPR solicitations. These all get published to sam.gov. If you don't know, sam.gov is the system for award management. It's the federal government's procurement portal. It's where you get registered. It's where you can get certified as a small business. It's where you can find contracting opportunities that are open and closed. So these are going to be opening up. The onboarding is actually opening up soon. They open up before the main solicitation. So the 5-year solicitation cycles, they have not opened up yet. However, the onboarding ones are open. And specifically relevant for most of my clients, they've got fuel tenders, mechanic with service truck, vehicle with driver, and then the heavy equipment. Those, I mean, I see other ones, faller modules of clients that do that as well. So if you are in one of these categories and you want to get on this onboarding process, you want to get on fires in the next 4 years, you got to start working now. So get in contact with your local APEX Accelerator. If you don't have a SAM registration yet, the timing is going to be a little bit tight. We can get it together. It depends on how fast SAM approves you. We can do it. That's why we schedule this webinar here. It's kind of a last reminder. But you have to think about hurrying because a lot of these are going to be due, and they are due in the middle or the late part of February. So that's really just about 3 weeks away. So if you want to get on an onboarding solicitation, you got to do it now. You got to start working on this now. So if you're in this category, keep that in mind. New solicitations, you have a little extra time, but you also want to get on it soon. New solicitations are not open just yet. They're expecting them to open about tomorrow, sometime this week or next. The synopses rather. So they're just going to release the solicitation template and kind of give some information about it. But the full solicitation, we can actually bid on it, expecting that to be open within the next 3 weeks. Typically, they're open for about a month. So there we have the dates here from the 19th to the 23rd of February. So you do have some more time on there, but still you want to get prepared, make sure your equipment's all up to snuff and all your registrations are in place. I will talk about some of the prerequisites in the next slides. New equipment being solicited in 2024 includes chippers, communication units, trailers, miscellaneous heavy equipment. This is a popular one. They solicited heavy equipment last year, dozers, excavators, tractor plows. This year they have the miscellaneous ones. So they've got feller bunchers, masticators, which can be attached to heavy equipment, and road graders, potable trucks, gray water trucks, trailer mounted hand washing units. That's a big one. Helicopter operations support trailer, mobile chainsaw repair trailer, and mobile sleeper unit. So if you're in that category, this is your year to get in on the ground floor to get on a 5-year agreement. Okay, so as promised, I want to talk about some prereqs here. As I mentioned, sam.gov is where you can register to be a vendor with the federal government. If you're getting paid on a federal contract, doesn't matter what the agency is, you need to be registered in sam.gov. So this is not unique to VIPR. This is a general process. This is also now required, not the full registration, but the first part, the validation where you get the unique entity ID. This is a required prerequisite for CalFire as well. So everybody in this webinar, if you're trying to get into wildfire contracting in California, will be wanting to go onto sam.gov, get a login username, enter your company information, supply some documentation. So the first thing you need to do is validate your entity. The result of validating your entity, meaning your business, in sam.gov is that you get a UEI. That's a unique entity ID. This process can take as little as just a couple days, or it can take a lot longer if you have issues with documentation. And here's the key, and this is a struggle for, I mean, a lot of you probably are in rural regions. A lot of my clients who I work with use PO boxes for most things, or they have an address that's out on a country road or state highway somewhere that's not USPS validated. This can be an issue when you're going through sam.gov because they need a physical address, and preferably one that checks out in the USPS validation. And it can't be shared. It can't be a PO box. It can't be a virtual address. Can't be a registered address. You think about it this way. They want to be able to go and knock on your door and know that someone representing your company will answer. A lot of folks end up using their home addresses, even though they don't want to share that publicly. There used to be these things called phone books where you could look people's addresses up. So just keep it in mind if you're going to need to supply a physical address that's related to your company. And if you're a sole proprietor and it's just you and you don't have an office, it's a lot of folks, and you can still do business as a sole proprietor for sure. That might just be your home office in this case, or your home. The other thing is that you need some sort of legal documentation to show that your business name matches up with that address. So what does that mean? Well, it's kind of easy. The easiest situation, if you're an LLC or your corporation, you file articles of incorporation, articles of organization, and you use a physical address on there. Well, that's great. You've got 123 Park Avenue, and then you've got your legal business name, blah, 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 LLC. That's really simple. You just provide that documentation, and that will also show when you started, and it'll show your address and your legal business name. If you're a sole proprietor, your legal business name is your name, your first and last name. So what you need is something that shows your address and your first and last name on there, your physical address. So this could actually be a utility bill. Even folks that use PO boxes on their driver's license, everything else like that. If there's a service address, so even though it's you get your bill at the PO box, there's often a service address, septic delivery, water, gas, electricity. That's something you can do. You can also use bank statements if you change your address on your bank, and have them reissue a statement. And as long as it has that home address and your name or your business name on it, that can also work. And then there's a lot of different options there, but it can be frustrating for folks that don't have their physical address listed on a lot of documents. So keep that in mind as you're going through this. Are you included in that category? Might be difficult, could take longer than a week. So let's just keep that in mind. We can help walk you through doing a SAM registration. This first step validation, they also need something to prove your start date. If you're a sole proprietor, that's usually kind of not important. But if you're an LLC or a corporation, that is important. And we can walk you through all of this. At the end of that process, you get a UEI, unique entity ID, and you can use that for CalFire as well. And then you get sent to the CAGE office with your full SAM registration. That takes a week or two, sometimes 3 weeks for approval. And the CAGE review has been sending just about everybody emails with follow-up questions. So when you get this, you have 3 business days to respond. If you jump through that hoop, then you get CAGE code. That is your ticket for federal contracting. All right. Prerequisite number 2, you need a USDA e-authorization account. And I'm going to qualify this section by saying they've recently made a change where you can link your login.gov account. Your login.gov account is used across multiple platforms, but mostly you'll know it probably from sam.gov. It's what you need to set up in order to get logged into SAM. So It seems that some of this has been done away with, but neither Craig nor I have been able to verify that you truly no longer need to do the identity verification through USDA eAuth. So take this with a grain of salt. It might be simpler than this, but we might as well go through it. Here's where you sign up. Basically, it's an identity verification portal that you can use to get into the VIPR program. Go in there, you click that you're a customer. Actually, I don't think that's correct. I think you're supposed to click USDA employee contractor. You set up a username and password. You'll have an account information page. It looks like this, and then you're going to want to click on verify my identity. There's two options. You can do it online, or you can go in there in person and provide some paperwork. I prefer the online one. Basically, what it'll do is it'll go through a quiz that's based on public records, bank, times when you open a credit card, a auto loan, things like that. And that will go through the system there. So it's a lot faster to do the online one, but if you're the in-person kind of, if that's how you do things, then you can go into the in-person identity verification system with a local registration authority, LRA, at the USDA Service Center. So you can find a list of those online as well. And you can bring a state issued license, like a driver's license that's not expired. Okay, I'm going to talk briefly about the VIPR portal. I'm going to go relatively quickly through this because I think the VIPR portal is actually quite easy to use. And Craig is going to talk about it a little bit as well. But as far as government contracting portals go, trust me, folks, this gets a lot worse than this. So you can find the full guide. There's this nice guide overview for using the vendor application. This goes into a lot of detail, and it's really comprehensively put together. So I love that they have that guide, and we've linked it here. You'll be able to find that later. So to start with this process, you go to the VIPR portal that I've listed here and log in using your USDA eAuth or your SAM, your login.gov information. And the first thing it's going to ask you is to put in your UEI. So remember, that's the unique entity ID, and you get that from the first step of your SAM registration. Once you put it in, make sure it's accurate. Don't, if you hand type it, that's why you have you do it twice, because that will suddenly link those two accounts. If you put in someone else's UEI, that's a bad news. Check, it's going to import a lot of information from SAM, so just double check that that is all accurate, make sure it's complete. If there's anything else, you can fill it in there. But the two things need to match. That's something I want to make clear. SAM needs to match VIPR. All information on your company needs to match both of them. So you can sync the two of them in the VIPR portal under the My Company tab, even if it doesn't do it correctly the first time. So this is what it looks like in the portal. You've got the main thing are these tabs here. Home will give you some different options. It'll give you your alerts, any sort of planned downtime. My Company is your company's information. It's imported from SAM for the most part. And like I said, you can click on View Import, and that will sync the two of them. If they're not synced up, contracting officers cannot sign off on a VIPR agreement. So make sure that those two things are synced up. My Resources, you're going to spend some time here for sure. This is where you enter your equipment. And so when they say resource, they mean equipment. That could be a dozer, could be, your chainsaw faller modules, which is just two people with chainsaws. That could be a consumer level pickup truck, Dodge Ram. So in the resource section, let's see, do I have a slide on this? If you click there, it's going to bring you to something that looks like this. It will have a list of what you've done already. And if you haven't done anything, then you just click over here on Add New Resource. When you click there, it will walk you through this sort of resource setup wizard. If you have one, you can update here. Otherwise, start here, enter your VIN. Don't worry about the equipment ID. A lot of folks get hung up on this part. This is not an official field that needs to come from your vehicle. You can make something up. I have folks that have nicknames. So you could say truck number 1. Chainsaw number 1. So don't worry about that part. You do need your license number, and they're going to ask other information, just qualifications, attributes about your vehicle, your equipment. And then they're going to ask for photos. The photos they ask for are very important. In Region 5, they are not doing in-person inspections for the most part. So these photos are the inspection. What this means is that you have to provide very clear photos where everything's legible. And you can see the entire, let's say it's a truck. You need to see the bumper on both sides. If it's a side angle, you need to see the whole truck, the rear view mirrors and everything. And you need a picture of the manufacturer plate that has the VIN and the gross vehicle weight and all that. It all needs to be very clear, legible, broad daylight. Try to be kind to the folks that are reviewing these applications so they can approve you, because they do want to approve you. So you upload these into the system using the Manage tab, and you kind of go from there. So that's kind of wetting the whistle here about how to enter your resources. Craig's going to bring us through and talk a lot more about how to submit quotes in VIPR and what to expect afterwards. As I mentioned, Craig's a team lead contracting officer at the Forest Service. He's got 24 years of experience in federal contracting across multiple agencies and private defense contractors. So thank you so much, Craig, and go ahead and take it away.
Oh, yes. Good morning. And I want to say thanks to James and the Norcal APEX Accelerator. I know that they do great things there. And yeah, do I have control of the slides?
I'll advance them for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, so I'll be talking about a little bit about the quoting process, about the technical evaluation, what happens after your quote is submitted, some about how we do price analysis and how prices are looked at on our side. And then once award comes around, publishing DPLs and what that means. And then self-status, and a little bit about the AIMS source list and what AIMS does in general. All right, so the quoting process. So once your company information is complete, you'll want to go into the open solicitation section. And let's see, so this little picture here is the open solicitation part. And as you can see, there's a status there of that solicitation that says published. And that means that you can go ahead and submit a quote to the solicitation. And this one is for chippers. So if you have a chipper, and there's a little play button, so that's where you start off with submitting your quote. That kind of starts the wizard going, and you hit play. And just so the onboarding process, so when you go into your VIPR account, and you'll go to this open solicitation page, and then under status, there will be, I think it says reopened, and that's how you submit to the onboarding. So if you're in one of the off years where it's not the main solicitation, but you want to submit a quote to a category that is ongoing currently. And the process would be the same. You hit the play button, and then you go to the next slide. There we go. So the VIPR system, like James was saying, it's really actually pretty good as far as systems go, and it will walk you through and basically have you submit every part of the information that we need. And so part of the process will be uploading requested documentation, such as pictures. And so if the solicitation, you read through the requirements, and it says something like, you have to have a sticker or some identification on your door that says the name of the company. Then when you take that picture, they're going to be looking, and they're going to want to see that. Just to let you know, like when you take your picture, they want it to be basically ready to go. And then, so that section E.2 is where it talks about the instructions for submitting quotes, and has all the instructions for that, which are different for each different category. So of course, the dozer is going to have different requirements than a chipper. And documents could be validating that the resource exists. I've had contractors that they have submitted 3 different resources or pieces of equipment, but they all have the same pictures. And so we had to put them in negotiations and say, what's going on? So you want to make sure that you're getting your pictures right, and picking the right one out of the list when you're uploading them. And they'll be looking for resource type. So some pictures will say, take a picture of a pump for the potable water or the gray water solicitation that's going to be open this year. They might want to see a picture of the pump so they can verify that it is right. And they'll ask for a picture of the VIN or serial number, and it has to be clear because they're going to basically match that up with what you have submitted in VIPR, and they want it to be the same. And one of the things you have to be careful of is the last 6 numbers have to be real. Like there's no putting zeros at the end to fill up any kind of number spaces. So it has to be, the last 6 has to be the last 6 in your VIN number that you submit. And then certificates for the resource. There are some resources like Skidgens that require an engineering certificate. And then, but those aren't open this year. But there are other ones that will have different certificates. And then training and resumes. So a lot of that's for water handling and things like that. The region's going to want to see all your training certificates. And it's not at the time of quote submission, but it is definitely before you start work, which is probably by, I think, May or June, they want to see all that documentation. Next slide. Okay, so after the quote submission, so once you fully complete and submit your quote in the system, you will receive an email confirmation. And there's one little, of course, every good rule has an exception. And the exception there is that with the new onboarding, since it's not a new solicitation, it's not going to send you an email that you've submitted it. But when you're submitting to a new solicitation, it will send you an email. So make sure you get that confirmation email and that you are before the close date of the solicitation period. And that's actually pretty easy to do because once you're past the solicitation period, it just won't let you do anything anymore. It'll just lock it out and you can't even get into it. So you want to make sure that you're before the close date. Once your quote is submitted and the solicitation period ends, then our regional contract operations personnel will start going through everything. And it takes them a pretty good while to get through all of it. And then if you're found acceptable, you're usually not notified until you just get an award. And so a lot of contractors and vendors, they wonder if something's wrong, but usually nothing's wrong. And you'll be contacted basically only when something is wrong. And so if your pictures aren't, they can't see what your VIN number is, then they'll generally email you or call you and ask for another picture to be sent to them. And at that point, we'll put you in the negotiations so you can make any changes that might be required in the system. Next slide. Okay, so how are VIPR agreement price evaluated? So pricing is always a sticky question, and we're the federal government. We're not going to tell you what price to put on your equipment. You put a price on there, and then so we have different ways. We do market research where we look at all the information available to us to see what this type of equipment might be priced at. And with that, we look at previous pricing, and of course, things change from year to year, and so we do take that into account. We'll look through current price lists or catalogs. A lot of this equipment doesn't have catalog pricing, but that's another way that we can use to establish the reasonableness of prices. We'll compare similar items in a related industry. So there's a lot of, there are dozers and the Forest Service and the federal government. We hire a lot of construction equipment. And so we might have a good way to look at pricing between the two. And then contracting officer's personal knowledge. If I know that something's changed, I'll take that into account. And then of course our technical experts they put together their own government estimates they give to us, and we take that into account. And then we look at anything else that's reasonable to kind of decide what that pricing might look like. And so another thing on pricing, when the awards are made, like nothing in the VIPR program is secret. All the pricing is published on the internet. You can look up anyone's agreement that has a current agreement. You can look it up and see what they're charging for their prices. So that is another way to kind of judge and see how you can set your pricing. Next slide. So awarding agreements and publishing DPLs. And DPL is an acronym that stands for Dispatch Priority List. And that's the list that once we do make awards, so once we do make awards, which is generally around June of each year, that's when we make all the awards so that we can get the awards and everything ready before fire season, really. So once the awards are made, then we publish the priority list, and the priority lists rank each contractor based on a set of criteria. The biggest criteria is going to be price. So the lowest price vendor in that category, in that area, will usually be at the top of the list and will be called first. And there are other things that can affect that, such as small business status. And there can be preference given to certain small business categories. All right, my throat's getting a little scratchy. Okay, and so those will be published basically after the awards are made. We publish the new lists, and those will replace the old lists for whatever used to be on there, the old agreements. And next slide. So self-status in IROC. So yes, all vendors are required to self-status their equipment. IROC is another system that the federal government uses and that's where when an order is placed, it gets placed through IROC and it goes to the dispatch centers. And the dispatch centers will go get their list and call down their list of available equipment. And IROC is how you basically make your equipment available. And to obtain this, there is to obtain an account access guides on the website. You have to get an app account and then request access to IROC. And then you can get in there, and once you get an awarded agreement, your resource will start showing up in there. All right. Next slide. All right. Was that it?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was muted. I just want to note that I've included a link here. This is the self-status guide, which is really helpful.
Oh, okay, great.
And we can also help you out with that. But if you click on that, should bring you to the link once you get the slide deck.
All right. So AIMS is an acronym for At Incident Management, and they're a group. So VIPR is a group, and then AIMS is a separate group. And they basically, once an incident is going, they will go and for whatever equipment is needed for an incident that VIPR does not have, they will be doing ERAs, which are a little different than the CalFire ones, because ours are for each incident. So one ERA is not able to be used on a different incident. They're incident only. So that's what they do. And they also, let's see, what are they doing? I think AIMS is also doing tent systems. They're going to be soliciting for tent systems in a couple months here. And they'll be doing that actually through the VIPR system, but it'll be the AIMS group doing that. And yeah, so there is a list. Here's a link. It's a really long link, but you go there and then there'll be a short form, survey type form that you can go through, and it will put whatever resource you have onto this list so that when they need it, they can call you. And I think that was it for my part.
That is it. Thank you so much, Craig. Craig's going to be around for the Q&A, so if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in the Q&A, and we'll get to those. And we have 90 minutes today, so we've still got almost 40 minutes left. So do stick around. Again, thanks, Craig. And next up, we have Lucas Titus, who's a forester with CalFire. So, Lucas, I'll let you take it over. If you can unmute yourself and go from here. Lucas has with the resource management program. He's been with CalFire for more than 13 years, and you've been a qualified heavy equipment boss for 10 years. Currently supporting the hired equipment division with the ERAs.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Hope it's all going well. So I'm going to just give you a brief overview of some of the things we're doing and some of the things CalFire is looking at. As James said, we're right in the middle of our 3-year window. CalFire does our solicitation for 3 years for our contracts, for our emergency agreements. And so we are in year 2 of a new agreement period. And with that being said, everybody can you can join whichever unit you are in. Anywhere from November 1st to March 31st, the units take any modifications to their contracts. And with that being said, the best thing I could say is to get familiar if you want to have an agreement with CalFire, to get familiar with our hired equipment supplier manual, which the link is on here, and just familiarize yourself. It's definitely a little slightly different than the Forest Service and with the VIPR. And you just want to be very familiar with what is required for the different types of equipment or services that you want to provide with your contract. Okay, so each we can move ahead, James. So like I said, right here, here's the link, the hired equipment program supplier link that's in the slideshow for you. It was just updated January 1st of this year. There were some slight changes off the original supplier manual from last year with the new contracts. They tried to flesh out a little bit of the language. Some of it had to do with insurance. Some of it has to do with what is required and what the supplier has to bring to an incident or what they're required to have. The manual further goes on and lists out all your equipment rates and what is required for those rates. CalFire, our rates are based on different your periods that you're working, whether you're working a standard shift, extended shift, and those are from 8 hours a day down to from less than 8 hours a day is a standard rate, and then down from 12 hours to when you're working 24-hour shifts is your extended rates. And that's how your rates are paid. When you're originally ordered on an incident, when you get that phone call that night or that morning, or whenever it is, they'll specifically tell you what you're being ordered for, what they're ordering you for, what shift that you're going to be ordered for, what type. So if you're ordered for just a standard shift and you get there and you end up working extended shifts, those things will be changed at the incident. But it's very important to pay attention and keep the documentation of what they were ordered for, especially if you're something simple like a hand wash station. We had some problems last year in our unit where they were ordered for extended, so they were ordered for a 24-hour shift. But when they got there, the documentation that was at the incident was only for a standard shift. So once they get to close out at the end of the incident, they had to prove that they were ordered accordingly, and they were being told they were only going to be paid for a 12-hour day when they should have been paid for a 24. And once the supplier was able to show, this was my order, this is what my number was that I was ordered, my E number, and this is what I was ordered for, a 24-hour shift, they were able to get paid that way. So one of the other difference in ordering for CalFire, instead of going off of what you're agreeing to be paid like VIPR, CalFire does their ordering based on basically planned need, either immediate need once the incident starts, which that usually is just the closest resource to wherever the incident is at. Those equipment gets rolled that way. Then you go to the plan need, which would take into the what they're planning to need on that incident moving forward. And on plan need, we have 3 different tiers that we hire off of. Tier 1 is small businesses and disabled vets. Tier 2 is disabled vets or small business. So you're either vice versa. So you're either both for tier 1, you're one or the other for tier 2, or everybody else in the state on tier 3. And so that's how our ordering system goes. So they'll call you, say, hey, are you available? And you say whether you can meet the need, date, and time or not. That's good. So like I said, we try to do a certain percentage of business, and I think it's about 25%. Less than that. 25% is what our goal is, I believe, for small business and disabled vets. So there's no guarantees once you have a contract with us. It's just open, and you move forward. Go ahead and hit the next slide. So like I said, we're right in the middle of our 2nd year of our agreement period. It doesn't end until 2026. Your supplier packages, so the first year, which was last year, March 31st, 2023, you had to have your complete supplier package turned in, and with all the documentation. And each one of those, any supplier that is wanting to sign up with CalFire, you sign up through the local unit based on where your facility is, where the equipment's going to be out of. So here in Humboldt County, if you have equipment in Humboldt or Del Norte County and your facility is in Humboldt or Del Norte County, that you'll sign up with me. If you're over in Shasta, say your equipment's in Redding, or you'll get signed up in that unit. So it's whichever unit your facility is, where your equipment is. So it's spread out throughout the state, where you will get signed up. But if you call your local CalFire station, wherever your facility's at, they'll be able to direct you the right person to sign up through. It's the same material that you'll be submitting in each unit. So you can have an emergency agreement in Shasta, and you can have an emergency agreement in Humboldt. You can have one in Tehama Glen. You could have 3 different contracts. Only difference on your number will be the 3-letter designator at the beginning of that. It'll either be HUU if you're in Humboldt, SHU if you're in Shasta, TGU if you're in Tehama Glen. But you'll work through those different coordinators. So you can have multiple agreements, but the equipment, it's specific to where the equipment is actually at. So your facility where your equipment's going to be housed at has to be in that unit. So if you have 4 dozers and you have a facility in Tehama Glen and you want to sign up 2 dozers that are stationed there all the time, then you sign them up in TGU. 2 of your dozers are always at a facility in Humboldt or Del Norte, then you would snip those 2 dozers here. You can't have that's based off when we take the serial numbers that won't let us put into our hired equipment program. 2 different serial number, the same serial number in 2 different units doesn't work. So like I said, the packages are we want them turned in by March 31st of each year. Open solicitation each year is November to March. After March 31st, then it's at the unit's discretion on who they want to add, who they want to subtract, or what equipment can be moved around within that unit. And most of that's driven off of what the fire activity is or emergency. And we keep talking about fires because that is 95% of what we're talking about. But in the last few years, we use the same EERAs for flood control and cleaning up after some of the snow events that we had last year with the heavy winter. That's another way they do some of the ordering systems off of too. So by March 31st, you want to get your packages in. Each year, you also have to update your insurance. You're responsible to do that. So these are all the different types of, the slide here shows all different types of information. So your driver's license, your vehicle registration. Each year, once you have a contract, each year you also have to provide updated registration, updated vehicle insurance, your updated workman's comp. You have to always provide us any updated certificates for your small business disabled vets. And then any of your DOT commercial type equipment, you have to provide us with your annual safety inspection. So those are all different types of things that you have to do on a yearly basis. And then by the fire season, you need to include your fire card. If you're a fire line specific piece of equipment, then it's going to have operators. You need to provide that safety training card to us each year too. It says due by April 30th, 2024. That's our goal. But as we all know, a lot of these classes don't take place until January, February, March, April, May, June. It just depends on when those come in. And once you have those, you need to get those to your local unit where you're signing up at. Water tenders, if you're a new water tender that wants to sign up with CalFire, we start scheduling pump testing after February 3rd of each year. And like I said, that's on a unit by unit specific on how they want those done and how they're going to go about doing the pump testing that year. I think that's good there, James. So like I said, only one supplier can control that piece of equipment. So there's no sharing. There's no sharing of equipment. And then, like I said, you sign that piece of equipment up, you're signing up in the unit where your facility is, where you're going to house that piece of equipment. Can't have it under multiple contracts. And then CalFire has no obligation to include equipment in an ERA. As such, only equipment that is satisfactory condition will be accepted. So that's why each new contract year will do an inspection of that equipment to make sure it meets all the requirements. And then any subsequent year, there could potentially be inspections or not. But once you arrive to an incident and you're ordered, you're expected to that piece of equipment is expected to be in good working order when it shows up, and it will be inspected at each emergency. And if it's turned away at the inspection, then it's on your dime for the hauling to the incident and hauling back if it doesn't meet the need of the incident. Okay, James. So this is what I touched on earlier about the tiered system, tiers 1, 2, and 3s. It's very important that if you're a small business or a disabled vet that you let us know and you provide that documentation and make sure it's updated, because in our HIMSS program, it doesn't take you out of being on the list to be called for an incident if you let your certificate expire, but you don't have that preferential treatment. You won't be in that tier 1 or tier 2 if those aren't updated. You'll automatically get rolled to the tier 3 that doesn't have that. All right, go move ahead. So this is just an example as rates and the shifts. The standard, reduced, and the extended. So this is just for the bulldozer. Every piece of equipment in the supplier manual has this breakdown of shifts and what CalFire will pay for those shifts. That's just for the dozer. That's not for your transport in and out. That's a separate rate and shift package too. So on each incident, you'll get for every day that you worked, you'll get a shift ticket that shows on there how many hours you worked, which verifies whether you're a standard, reduced, or extended rate. And those are the horsepowers and the pay that you'll receive for those. Okay, we can move ahead. So all the information, these are the sample forms that you'll be submitting to us. These will be your CalFire 290s, the very specific your cord forms, certification of liabilities, equipment brokerage, showing that you have proof of you're responsible for that equipment. Each year you'll get a radio frequency use agreement, an FC 100R signed out, sent to you. That's usually done in the spring. And so each year you'll sign that. That'll show you what loads that we'll be working off of that year for your radio communications. And then the different checklists on the FC 291s for your inspection checklist, which were updated this year, and they're in one of the slides coming up. And then another important piece of the document is your payee ST204, so you're paid correctly. It has all your pertinent information on there on how you should be paid. One of the newer things that came into effect with last year's agreement period, along like with the VIPR contract, is SAM's number, the unique identification number. You also have to have that now with CalFire. And so all you have to do to provide that to us is to email or cover sheet from the SAM's page that lists that number and that it's active. Okay, go ahead. So these are all just in general, all the different types of equipment that CalFire is looking to have for our equipment agreements. I thought it's good to see, different things out there. I get lots of different questions when you go to the supplier manual. Once you open up the link, these are all on there, and once you push them, it should take you directly to that page also. So, but it tells you very specifically that if you're going to sign up for a UTV or a golf cart to have, so we can order those, what they have to do. They have to have a backup alarm. They have to have a safety belt. They have to have, whatever is required. Same thing with the water tenders. It shows you on there, what exactly that you have to have for that water tender, based on the type of the water tender is, based on the annual inspection you have to have, and the information that has to be provided. All right, James. So this is our most updated FC 291A. This is for all Fireline equipment. This is a safety inspection that you'll be doing on your initial packet with us before you get your signed EERA. We will come out and inspect your equipment, and this is the exactly what it looks like. That's updated. There's a few different little changes on here. Now we put the request number up there, so when you're on an incident, that it'll be in there. They'll give a spot for the driver of that piece of equipment if it's an operator, either the operator or the driver. So you'll have one of these for your low bed, you'll have one of these for your dozer, you'll have one of these for your excavator, whichever piece of equipment it is. And then it also lists on here all the required personal protective equipment and the standards that you go off of for that. There's different caveats, like I said, transports, bulldozers, and the next slide, I believe, shows the other types of equipment. So it's a little bit more of a table down there, besides the Fireline water tenders and the fallen modules, a little bit more of a table that what is required. So if you're signing up to Skidgen, you have the proper documents, you have the seat belt, you have the backup alarms. So whichever piece of equipment you have, this is how we'll go ahead and sign those up. And then important on the water tenders, the gross tear, and so that you're heavy and light weights. They always have those updated for your certs. Okay, go ahead. And this is the real basic one, just for your in-camp items, such as signboards, such as portable toilets, wash stations, your I'm blanking on hand wash stations, the hand wash trailers, things like that. This is what you'll see for that. Go ahead. And that is the end of it for me.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Lucas. It's a real treat to have both Lucas and Craig here helping out delivering this. We got plenty of time. We got about 20 minutes for questions. First, I just want to, this is a little slide of our team. If you need help with anything here, you can certainly reach out to us for services or one of our partners in another service area. So if you're in our 15 county service area, please apply for our services. We're happy to help out. Questions? Okay, I'm seeing some activity in the chat. I don't want to be a stickler, but if you could put your questions in the Q&A, it's easier for us to follow along in there and then answer them in an orderly way. So we're going to do our best with questions here. but we got plenty of time, so please keep them coming. We're going to get a lot of questions. We already have questions about asking how specific types of services and resources can get involved. But first, we have from Alice Anderson, can you be a prime for VIPR or CalFire if you don't handle equipment but use subs who do?
So I can answer that for VIPR at least. So you can have a prime contract where you have subcontractors working under you for VIPR. The piece of equipment itself can only be on one agreement. So like you have a dozer, it's by VIN number, and that VIN number cannot be on any other agreement. So yes, you can do that. You can have subs who do the work, and I see that quite a bit.
What about for CalFire, Lucas?
And with CalFire, no, if I'm understanding it right, you have to be the primary. We don't allow subs, so you can't get the phone call and say, "Hey, yes, I'll accept the incident," and then send, your neighbor who also has a contract can't be sent over. It has to be whoever's listed with you, your equipment listed under your contract. If I'm understanding that right, we don't determine who your operators are. You sub that work out.
Yeah, that might be the question. I wonder if they're, if it's your dozer, but you have another operator who's a sub.
Yeah, you can have whoever you want run your equipment as long as you have them covered under your insurance and your, all those types of things. And they've been through the fire class.
Okay.
So that's
Great. Claudia Williams is asking, is there any demand for language services in any of this?
not for CalFire at this time.
We do a lot of we do quite often agreements for sign language when we have community meetings and things like that. We'll do that, and so you'd probably want to get onto that AIMS list. That might be a good place to start with something like that for the federal.
Does AIMS have somewhere where you can put in miscellaneous categories and services?
Yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff, and I think you can just even fill in, like it'll say, what is it? You can just fill in what your service is and then put your contact info.
For folks that haven't done it yet, the AIMS process is very, I want to say informal. It's just a form you go through and you kind of select some boxes. So
And for CalFire, for like a language, we just hire a local service. But just like we do with our security for an incident, we hire a local service only agreement for that duration, or like garbage disposal type thing. So different types of services like that, we'll do an incident only.
But that's as a contract, right? You're hiring
Correct. No. Yeah, you do a separate agreement, not listed on emergency agreement.
Right. And would that just be through Cali Procure, or how would they find out about those? Would those be done locally, or?
It's just local. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Typically they hire someone, they try their best to hire someone local in the area. And usually that has to do with with whoever the local liaison is for the county you're working in, or they'll turn us on to somebody like that.
Great. Okay. And we'll get some more questions about specific, because, a lot of what we talked about today has been actual fire response equipment and equipment operators. But for instance, Ashwini Sins is asking, they're a software company and a software service company. They have a module that encompasses fire mitigation and management. So they've got field automation, safety asset management, vegetation management, data integration, wildfire prediction. Is that anything that could have a role in either of your organizations? I know it's not part of it. It wouldn't be part of the emergency rental agreement sort of thing, but.
I know for CalFire, you'd have to go to the specific unit or to the region and seek those types of things out there. That's not something I'm familiar with or could answer on.
Yeah, I'm not exactly familiar with it either, but I know that there is an organization in the Forest Service that is looking at this 'Cause I think a few years ago, Congress mandated that we kind of start looking into technologies like this.
And just a general point about contracting it, if you have something like this that's kind of a unique service that's not solicited, you can put together some marketing materials, a marketing plan, and do some market research and find out who to talk to, go and talk to them. And, I always want to remind my clients that behind all of the red tape, it's humans making all of these decisions. So, figuring out who to know and who to talk to, whose ear to get, and asking the right questions is a big part of finding opportunity for your company, especially if it's not something where there's already a really solid, established, well-oiled machine like with VIPR or the hired equipment program. Kevin Rogers is asking, do closer resources get priority in the tier system? So, like, for instance, would a tier 2 get hired for tier 1 because they're closer, even if the tier 1 could meet the time? That's for Lucas. The question's a little bit confusing, but basically, like, what role does location play in the priority listings for?
So they redid a lot of this last year, and now our ordering is going out of Sacramento, and it's my understanding that it's based on the tiers on where they're at, if they can meet the plan needs. So it used to be closest resource, and now it's more if you're 3 hours away from the incident and the other guy is 4 hours away from the incident, but the 4 hour individual is higher up on the list right now because of the way the rotation is going, and they have to be there at, say, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it's midnight, so you both can meet the time of need, that the 4 hour person that was higher on the list right now would get that call first, that it's not the closest resource at this time for the plan need hiring. But then now there's talk that they might go back a little differently on that and switch back to the closest resource.
Okay, great. Then we have a question from Liz Webb about inspections. Are the same equipments getting inspected, pieces of equipment getting inspected this year as last year?
So Liz's equipment is all ready to go for this year. I inspected theirs last year, so she won't need an inspection this year for that equipment until it shows up on an incident. And then it'll get re-inspected unless you're wanting to add something new to your contract, then you won't have to have any inspections.
Sounds good. Thanks. Nice, clear answer. Diane is asking, is there any demand for windshield replacement or repair?
Not for CalFire. That's a service. So we would hire that through our service procurement way.
Yeah, and we don't have separate agreements for that. We do hire mechanics to come to our incidents, and they might be able to do that type of work. Yeah, or kind of similar but separate is we usually hire tire services. So we'll find a local tire shop and pay them to come out and replace tires as needed, especially in the MODOK, because they have a lot of glass rocks out there that tear up tires.
Yeah, I bet. So if they wanted to get, I mean, you said as a service, that would still mostly be done on the local level, just kind of, you'd have to be found by organizations.
Yep.
Yeah. If they wanted to market themselves, try to get a line for that, how would do you have any words of recommendation how they might do that?
For CalFire, I would definitely just contact your local unit and find out who's in charge of your fleet management, your FEM fleet management, and those are the contacts in the unit that are in charge of all windshields, all fleet vehicles, and that's who you'd want to get in charge with that.
Great. Okay. Steven's asking, we're an off-road vehicle lighting manufacturer. Is there a way to get our products in front of end users? Most time we see CC purchases from our equipment at the unit level in front of the end users. Either of you want? Same
That would be
thing.
the same for CalFire. It'd be the same as the windshield. You'd have to talk to your fleet.
Yeah, as far as that type of a thing for the federal government, GSA does BPA contracts, that it would be good to look into that for them.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Someone's asking for the AIMS link. I'll send that again. All right, we're out of questions. Do we have any other questions in the last couple minutes here? This is your chance with the CalFire and Forest Service here. Guess that's a good sign. Craig, could we mention the new migrant labor DOL restrictions,
Sure.
just to kind of address?
Yeah. So there's going to be some things coming up. So the Department of Labor, they do a program called the Migrant and Seasonal Worker Protection Act, and it's commonly the acronym is MISPA. And so they see migrant differently than most people do. It's not like a foreigner or an immigrant. It is just somebody who works away from their home overnight. And so and specifically because it's the migrant seasonal worker protection, it has to do with agricultural workers. So it's going to be a lot of fallers are going to fall into this, and chippers. And next year we'll be looking at water handling for this type of thing for engine people that work on engines. And there is a spot where you have to go to DOL and get signed up. The Department of Labor is putting on a bunch of trainings about this to try to start informing people of the need to get registered with them. And so far so if you're answering and you see that, if you're reading through the solicitation and you see that as something that needs to be done, it could be a requirement, like I said, for fallers and chippers, as long as you plan to accept orders away from your home, pretty much. And yeah, and then also while I'm talking there, we're having a meeting, a vendor meeting in Reading on March 4th. And that will be published on san.gov to inform people. And if you look at any solicitations, it should also say it on there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig. And on a more general note, this is just a good opportunity to remind folks. Very few people love paperwork, and it feels like once you get to a block of text, it's the legalese that we all skip in order to click agree to terms and services. But it actually is quite important to read through these solicitations ahead of time. For instance, last year there was the H-2B workforce certification forms that very few people filled out just because they didn't fully go through the the solicitations. Restrictions on signage. For VIPR, your company needs to be posted. Your company name needs to be posted on the side of your truck. If you're not reading the fine print, a lot of these things you're going to miss, and it'll cause some headaches down the line. So really set aside an afternoon, drink a bunch of coffee, and get your highlighter out and go through these solicitation documents. Sometimes they are, 70, 80 pages, but you'll get a sense as you go through for what's important and what you can kind of skim through. But you will thank yourself later if you do some pretty comprehensive note taking and then follow up and work with us. We're here to help, or your local APEX Accelerator. Okay, we're getting some questions in here. This is a good question. Mike is asking. Oh, looks like
Sorry.
What?
I think I
Mind if we ask
one.
that question aloud, because it seemed like a good question.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm interested I'm interested in applying to VIPR as a vehicle with driver, and also have an 8-foot dump trailer, and was wondering if Ames would be the place to list the trailer as an addition to the truck with driver.
So the VIPR categories, we do have vehicle with driver, and that does not include trailers. So yes, if if there was a place to list the trailer, it would be in Ames. I work at Incident all summer long, and I don't think I've seen a vehicle trailer with trailer. Not that it can't happen, but it's definitely not common. But Ames would be a good place to list that trailer.
Okay, great. Jennifer's asking if our office is in Sacramento, we must register at that office. Not sure what if you're referring to APEX Accelerator program. There's a different jurisdiction that has a that does this. What's it called? California Capital APEX Accelerator. They would be the ones that cover your program. Maybe Lucas can refer to, if there's a different region unit in the Sacramento area, based on where your equipment is located. I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Jennifer.
If she's talking about in the Sacramento area, it would, based on what county, it was probably Amador, El Dorado County, or Nevada, Yuba Placer would be the most likely where they'd be signing up through. But you'd reach out to one of those.
Okay, great. Heather's asking, is there a separate registration required for the vendor and the employee with MSPA for Craig?
So there is a place to register with that. And I'm not an expert on that. I can definitely put a person's name in there that you could contact. And she works with Department of Labor and she is very eager to answer questions about these topics.
Oh, great. Can you drop that info?
Yeah, I'll type that right in there.
Great. All right, thanks. Let's see. We're out of questions in the Q&A. Looks like some folks put them in the chat. Where's the link to find out the rates offered for certain services? I assume, Khalifa, that you are referring to CalFire, since they're the only ones that offer the rates. Their supplier manual, which we referred to earlier, has that, and you can also find that on their website. So
and there is a pretty CalFire has a pretty extensive web page now. If you go under the hired equipment tab on CalFire's open page, and there's quite a bit on there, and it has the most updated. It has the documents that are required, and it has the document. It has the supplier manuals updated with some shortcuts.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna real quick gesture to this here. There's the website, and you can find the manual right there. And they've got a insurance document. If you've been doing VIPR before, you know that the Forest Service kind of lets you do your own thing with insurance, and that's really up to you. For CalFire, they're more involved, so also keep in mind about insurance documentation. We are out of time here, so thanks, folks, so much for all the great questions. As another reminder, you will be receiving the slides. You'll get these via email within the next week, and they're also going to be posted to our website. They're going to join our whole archive of the last 5-6 years of webinars. So you get the slides along with the YouTube video recording that we have been making this whole time. Thanks everyone for joining, and a very special thanks to Lucas Titus and Craig Erickson, who have donated their time today. Everybody here wants to see you succeed in these programs so we can get to the important work of battling these fires. So thanks everyone again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.